Please welcome Francesca Albanese.
Yuma. Hello, everyone. And I wish to express my gratitude to the Australian Friends of Palestine and the Australia-Palestine Advocacy Network for inviting me to Australia months ago, before the inferno that has enveloped Gaza started and or could be foreseen. And they invited me to meet with a variety of communities, constituencies, I'd say people of conscience, mostly, on unceded First Nations land. I pay tribute to the traditional custodians of the land where we are meeting today. And as a visitor to this country, but also as someone from the continent where colonialism originates as a method of control, resource exploitation, and subjugation of the natives, it's particularly relevant for me to be here in my position as a special rapporteur on the occupied Palestinian territory. And it is so moving for me to be able to pay my respects to the elders, past and present, and extend that respect to all other First Nations people present or watching. The indigenous people in these countries, as elsewhere across the world, cannot and have never ceded sovereignty. And as I say that, my heart goes out to Palestine, where the indigenous Palestinians, or what remains of them since the majority were ethnically cleansed in 1947, 1949 from what is modern-day Israel, and in 1967 from the territory that for 56 years Israel has militarily occupied the West Bank, including East Jerusalem and the Gaza Strip. The Palestinians under occupation are fighting today an existential struggle not to be forcibly displaced from or fatally subjugated in the little that remains of their historical homeland. In fact, it is correct to say that the indigenous Palestinians have been progressively ethnically cleansed as of 1947. For those who are not familiar with it, my mandate entails monitoring and reporting to the United Nations on violations of international law committed in the Palestinian territory that Israel occupies. This position is honorary, though very demanding, as you can see, and this is a position that I'm proud to serve as the 8th and first woman in the 30-year history of this mandate. The toughest part of this is being exposed to endless suffering, where people are too easily killed, blamed, and smeared, as my new friend Nasser Mashni said yesterday while he was in front of an execution squad. You did very well, Nasser. And this is the Australian people you proudly say you belong to, applauding you. And you Palestinians are always questioned, second-guessed, misinterpreted, and defamed. As an independent expert, my focus is on conducting investigations of violation of international law, particularly human rights violation. I made a point since the very beginning of my mandate. I have a people-centered approach, and although traditionally this mandate looked at violations committed by Israel, have made a point that I look at all perpetrators, all violators of international law, including the Palestinian Authority and the de facto authority in Gaza. And I'm committed to observe the strictest standards of objectivity and impartiality. This means examining facts, all facts reported to me. As for those of you who do not know, I'm not allowed to visit the occupied Palestinian territory, although I'm mandated to do so by the United Nations because Israel prevents me from doing so. So I examined the facts reported to me and observed, and I analyzed them against the applicable international legal framework, humanitarian law of war, international human rights law, and other relevant instruments. And once I've made my analysis and come to the conclusion that international law violations have been committed, my task is not to create a balance or to be impartial between the victims and the perpetrators. My job is to insist on measures to restore legality, to undo justice, and to prevent further abuses and injustice. If the state in question cooperates, this can be dealt with easily and discreetly, but when the state authorities refuse to engage in constructive dialogues and in fact continue to blatantly violate international law, then at the risk of making myself unpopular, as my colleague and former Special Rapporteur on Torture, Niels Milzer, used to say, we have a duty to engage with the larger public and appeal to a broader public. Anything less would make me personally betray my mandate. Across this visit, which as I said, had been planned for months, I was prepared to discuss my findings through 16 months as a special rapporteur, which culminated in 3 reports. One focuses on the right of self-determination, another one on arbitrary deprivation of liberty, which mostly happens behind bars, but also beyond bars, and I can elaborate on that, and children. But since the beginning of my term as a special rapporteur and the years that preceded it, the realities in the occupied Palestinian territory have evolved as a troubling one, which could explode at any moment. For example, in 16 months of mandate, I've documented and reported the killing of 60 Israelis and 460 Palestinians. This was not normal. And I'm saying that to those in this country who still think or behave as they really believe that the war, whatever they call war, started on the 7th of October. And again, this has been the most lethal year for the Palestinians after last year one, which was already the most lethal in 20 years. And yet, the tragic hours we are living and the ground zero of humanity that we have been thrown into since the 7th of October obliged me to start from there. Since October the 7th, 13,000 people have been killed in Israel and the occupied Palestinian territory, mostly Gaza. I have extended and continue to extend my deepest condolences to all individuals and communities directly affected, and to the many across the world who are suffering with them. And I particularly direct this message of sorrow and solidarity to the Palestinian and Jewish communities in Australia.